Oh, just a quick video here because I found this to be quite fascinating. You think astrology is not being played out in our news, then here's a quick excerpt from today's news. It's April 18th, Wednesday, April 18th. I just did a newsletter about the Venus K2 in Taurus and also Mars direct in Leo. These are the big things that have recently changed. Venus K2, as I was saying, has to do with women's issues, also social issues, and Mars direct is about fighting for our principles more and things of that nature. But look at the headlines here on Wednesday, April 18th. Dick Clark is dead. He's a celebrity. Of course, celebrities are actually related to Venus, but I'm going to show you his chart in a minute, and it'll make you go, oh, okay, Venus K2. We see this judge steps aside from George Zimmerman case. Of course, this is a woman, and of course the legal system, and this is about the Florida judge disqualified herself from the criminal case involving Trayvon Martin. I literally talked about the Trayvon Martin case, which was the young man in Florida who was fatally shot. This woman recused herself from being the judge because of a conflict of interest. But even when you go down here, CNN poll, GOP divided on vice presidential choices. It says, of course, we have a woman here, Condoleezza Rice, and they're saying that they don't want, that the Republicans are going to be careful not to repeat the John McCain mistake, which was to select Sarah Palin. It says, whereas it says Romney, poll of polls, Borger, no repeating McCain's vice presidential error. So this was, that was the woman, Sarah Palin, so she's not getting much respect. Here we have the breaking news. Secret Service, 3 members are leaving the agency amid a prostitution scandal. Investigation is ongoing. So there was a prostitution scandal at the Secret Service. Of course, prostitution, Venus stuff, Venus K2. Yesterday in the news, there was a airline pilot who almost crashed a plane, mistaking Venus for an oncoming plane. This happened last year, but we just had the report yesterday. So again, all these things have to do with, Venus is also related to the Justice Department, by the way, legal system, which I forgot to mention. Judges in particular are related to Venus. Lawyers are related to Jupiter. Jupiter and Mars are actually lawyers. Like Mars is like a public defender, which what happened is the defense attorney, which is very much related to Mars and Jupiter, requested that this judge step down. Judges are Libra. Remember, balance, justice. You'll often see judges are related to Libra, lawyers related to Jupiter especially, but also Mars. So, again, this isn't just pulled out of a hat, especially when you see Dick Clark's chart, which I'm about to show you. Let's look at his chart. Okay, Dick Clark's chart. So in case you're not used to reading this, I'll show you. Venus ascendant. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me bring up something here so you can also see. Okay. You can see the arc of his life here really quickly. Libra rising sign. Look at his birth chart. Venus K2 in the ascendant. Okay? Venus K2 in the ascendant. He's like a representative of Venus K2. I've said over and over again, and I've even said it in my web classes and everything else, the nodes can give incredibly powerful results. Dick Clark was born with Venus and K2 in the ascendant. And when did he have his greatest success? Of course, you would guess, K2 Venus. First the K2 Dasha, then the Venus Dasha. The K2 Dasha is when he really became major celebrity. This is when American Bandstand just rocketed, where he became internationally famous. K2 Dasha, because K2 is forming a Raja Yoga with Venus. Okay, and then of course the Venus Dasha, the 20 years after, from 1969 to 1989, this was when he was all over the place, because it's his ruling planet, it's in the first. Now, again, amateur astrologers would say, it's with K2, that's bad. The heck it's bad. It's forming a Raja Yoga with its ruler. Hello. So this is very powerful. So his Venus Dasha was enormously successful. And he also got into some problems. A lot of people don't know this about Dick Clark. I do, because I was a musician for years, and I knew about the payola scandal that happened in the late 50s, early 60s. And Dick Clark was involved in it. This is when he started American Bandstand, and it became very influential. You'd have to pay him half of the royalties of the song, or else he wouldn't put you on the show, and all this stuff. He had to testify before Congress, and he actually got off, mainly because of his charm and his demeanor. He was just as guilty as the other main person who was indicted, which was Alan Freed, who's actually the DJ who coined the phrase rock and roll. Alan Freed was ruined. He was actually destroyed. But Alan Freed wasn't a very genial guy. Dick Clark he's Libra with Venus, Ketu in the first. He's like the epitome of Venus. And the reason it's the epitome is because Ketu is there, given the pure knowledge and wisdom of how to be Venus personified. He's known for his boyish good looks, the world's oldest teenager, the charm, the grace, the smile. You just like Dick Clark. He's got Ketu in the Lagna, but it's with Venus, and he's Libra. So he's the epitome of this kind of power. And not just in general, but in the dashas as well. He got Ketu dasha in 62. The Paola scandal had diminished by then. It actually happened in 1960, which he would have been in Mercury-Saturn dasha, probably. Let me see. Mercury-Saturn, yeah, 59, that's what I would have thought. Because he's got Mercury in the second, and Mercury-Saturn, yeah, Saturn's in the third, which is willful, and Mercury is not doing so well here as far as giving, Mercury is a neutral planet, so he'll try to facilitate whatever he's joined. He's got Sun, Mars, Moon in Scorpio, which is actually really powerful, but his ethics his morals could get a little skewed, for sure, especially because he's also got Jupiter, the planet of ethics, in the 8th. I think it was probably more of an innocent mistake. That's just not an innocent mistake, but that's just the way business was done in the late 50s. Rock and roll was an emerging, growth industry. And so he was just one of the kings. And it's good to be the king. And he knew how to use his power. But he was also smart enough to be graceful and gracious and get out of that business as soon as he was investigated. Because he was almost indicted and made to give up American Bandstand. But what he did is he relinquished himself from all association with record companies at that time. That he actually owned half the record companies and all these publishing deals. And so when he would put people on American Bandstand and make them celebrities, he would make a lot of money as well. I'm not trying to make it out like that was his whole career, but this is something people don't really know that much about Dick Clark. But it happened in Mercury-Saturn, so he got this difficult stuff out of the way early. And then Ketu Venus was just huge amount of success, but he passed away today, unfortunately. Everybody liked Dick Clark. And, I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but it's interesting to see this. And as I say, I think it was a function of just the way the industry wasn't regulated. So this is why they had the regulations put in place. But he's also, he's got Jupiter retrograde in the 8th. For Libra, he wants to win. He wants to make a lot of money. He was enormously wealthy. These are tons of Dana yogas here. But when you look at the dashas, Ketu is when he really became powerful, and then Venus is when he just went through the roof with it. And then you see Sun dasha. Sun is a cruel planet since 89, and since then, he was still on some shows and stuff. Sun and Moon, they're still in a place of power and wealth. But look at when he passed away. Jesus, software. He just entered Rahu dasha. You see that? March of 2012, he just went into Rahu. Rahu's in the 7th, which is a Marika house, and it gives the results of its ruler, which is Mars, who is also in a Marika house. Mars is very combust. Yeah, you would think, Rahu dasha took him out pretty quickly. Mars dasha, Mars is actually supported because it's showing a lot of planets, but Rahu is going to give the results of its ruler, and in this case, it's in a Marika house. Marika is a killer house, the 7th, and its ruler is in a Marika house, even though it rules it, and it's very combust. So Mars dasha is when he really became ill, from 2005 on. He had a stroke, I think, in 2004, but since his Mars dasha, he went in the tubes. And you would see why. Mars is a double Marika for Libra. It rules the 2nd and 7th houses. It's a very important consideration in Gemini astrology, you see, but Marika houses are killer houses, is what it means. And it literally are the ones that can kill you. So he had so much grace with Ketu Venus that he sustained after a diabetic stroke and other things since 2004. He was so beloved that he also stayed around. But Rahu came March 2012, and he went out. But this news of the day is really amazing. And notice how, Dick Clark excused himself from his businesses. back in his day, it was a defining moment of his career, because there could have been no Dick Clark. If he would have been indicted, he could have been like Alan Freed. You probably never even heard of Alan Freed. He just faded into the mists of history, even though he's the one who coined the phrase rock and roll, because he was indicted by the Senate hearings. Dick Clark emerged unscathed and built Bandstand to a huge success. But part of it is because he also excluded himself from these predatory, it's not the word I'm looking for, nepotistic, what is it? Well, when it's, when it stays in the family, from these deals that were like sweetheart deals that he was involved in. So he absolved himself from that, just like this judge had to get out of the thing that she was doing. And again, Ketu cuts things out, removes things. So his upcoming Ketu dasha let him know, I'm going to cut this thing out. I'm going to cut this thing out and concentrate and grow this. This is the nature of Venus. This is the nature of Ketu, especially Ketu Venus forming a Raja Yoga in Libra. And again, Ketu and Venus are also related to the law. Look at this big legal case that just also became part of the public's attention. There's this there's also this headline, no repeating McCain's vice presidential error. I didn't even go to this page, but I'm sure it has a picture of Sarah Palin on it. Because this woman, well, it doesn't, but it has these two old fogies. But women, and of course we also have this prostitution scandal, which now, as I just updated the page on CNN, it went away. But the prostitution scandal with the Secret Service, again, protection, Mars and Venus. Prostitution, Venus, Secret Service, Mars. Mars is, protection. So, very interesting stuff. Well, here's some, latest news. Lady Vols, Summit Town. I'm just looking here. Secret Service. U.S. troops pose bomber. Rape video goes viral in South. Rape again. Iran blogger. Well, oh yeah, there's this thing with Pippa, this gun incident also that happened with the sister of the woman, the English princess, or whoever they are. Look at this. Afghan girls poisoned at school. All the social things. Swedish official ripped over racist. Well, I don't want to, look at the whole thing or make this video, so long, but I started talking about Ketu Venus. Dick Clark dies, who is an embodiment of Ketu Venus. He dies right at the beginning of his Rahu Dasha after Mars. You can see in his dashas why that would do it. And then here on this page today, the day that he dies, we also see the Secret Service rape allegation scandal. We see this judge, which is definitely Venus stuff, social justice. A woman stepping down from the case involving this person, Trayvon Martin, who this is all about that Mars retrograde thing was totally related to this. So as I said a couple days ago, social issues and, working through our, problems of violence and even, race and gender are still big issues right now. So interesting. I just want to make this quick video now that I saw all this stuff on CNN. I happened to open up the page and see this. So bless the soul of Dick Clark as well.